Hey, we're back with another episode of What's Tea with Tyra. So today's episode is called, But What Did God Say? So we're in Numbers chapter 20, verses 10 through 12. And they read, He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. Okay, so to give some background, basically the Lord told Moses just a couple of scriptures ago to speak to the rock. Let's go back. The Israelites were thirsty. They were whining, we're thirsty, we need some water. So Moses was like, Lord, what you want me to do? The Lord said, take your staff, take your brother, and go speak to the rock, and water will come forth. What did Moses do? He went to the people, got his brother, had the staff in his hand, and he struck the rock. So just to give additional background. So if you go back in Exodus, it's a very similar situation. The Israelites were thirsty. They're like, Lord, or Moses is like, Lord, what do you want me to do? They're thirsty. I don't know what to do. And the Lord told him, take his staff and strike the rock back then. But this time, the Lord told him to speak to the rock. And so coming back around to what's tea, but what did God say? Moses did what Moses wanted to do. Moses did what Moses was comfortable with doing. Moses was disobedient. And because he was disobedient, the Lord clearly says here, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I'm giving them. You're not going into the promised land because you were disobedient. Now I'm going to do a follow-up word at some point about how Jesus don't play or the Lord don't play. Like, you do wrong. Cool. Like, I told you what to do. You did what you wanted to do. Then boom. Like, thank God for Jesus. And that's going to be another word. But back to this point. In essence, how often do we find ourselves in a situation where the Lord tells us clearly what we're supposed to do, but we do what we want to do? We do what we're comfortable doing. How often does that happen? Moses was comfortable with striking the rock because he did it before. Also, Moses had an insecurity on speaking. We know when the Lord called Moses to bring the Israelites out of Egypt to begin with, he was like, Lord, I'm not really eloquent in speech. I'm not the best at speaking. And so that's why the Lord allowed him to bring his brother to be his mouthpiece. So perhaps that has something to do with why he decided to strike the rock and not speak to the rock, because of the insecurity of how he spoke. But in essence, we'll see. We have to remember and do what God tells us to do, not what we're comfortable with, not what we feel we should do, or not what we feel like doing. We need to do what the Lord commands us to do. All Moses had to do was speak to the rock. All he had to do was speak to the rock. Now, he done went 40 years, like brought them out of Egypt, did all the different, miracles, crossed the Red Sea. They went through all of this. And because you decided to strike this rock when the Lord clearly told you to speak to it, you can't even go in the promised land. Be obedient. Do what God tells us to do the first time. It makes our lives so much easier. The Lord blesses our obedience and he disciplines our disobedience. And Moses was disciplined. So was he. Listen to God the first time. But what did God say? Not what you want to do, not what you feel comfortable doing. What did God say? And simply just do that. And so that's what's tea for today. So as always, be grateful, thankful, humble, and blessed. And I will see y'all next time.